I'm going to go over 4 examples of using nested for loops. And here I have them on the left, and on the right I have the output. So I'm just going to go through them quick. In this first case, I have my outer for loop. Now when I say the outer loop, I mean this thing I encounter first. The outer loop is going to go from the x value 1 less than 5. So the outer loop is going to go for x values 1, 2, 3, 4, right? 4 times. Each time it's going to print the value of x, so it's going to print x, and then this little arrow that I made here, so it's going to print 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. Each time, though, after x prints its value, the inner loop is going to do its thing. Now, when you encounter an inner loop, each time you get into the inner loop, it starts it from scratch and does the entire thing. So this inner loop now is going to go for y values. I decided to call this y. Also from 1 less than 5. So the inner loop is going to count y values 1, 2, 3, 4. Each time it's going to print the y value with a space. Notice I'm using a print here, not a print line. It's just going to print it without going to a new line. When the inner loop is complete, in other words, after it's done 1, 2, 3, 4, it's then going to drop out of this inner for loop and do a print line statement. So again, the outer loop is going to print an x value with a little arrow. The inner loop is going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Then it's going to go to a new line. Then I'm going to go back up to the outer loop, get the next value of x. So now x is 2. It writes a 2 with a little arrow, and then it does the inner loop from scratch. 1, 2, 3, 4, goes to the next line. The x value is 3, writes 3, then the inner loop starts again. 1, 2, 3, 4, goes to a new line. The outer loop is 4, again, 1, 2, 3, 4. So here is the output of example 1. Of course, these are my x values, 1, 2, 3, 4, and these are my y values. Each time I get a new x value, it does the y loop from the beginning. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth. So that's my first example. The next example, and you can already see the output for it, very, very similar. The for loop on the outer loop does the same thing, x values 1, 2, 3, 4. So again, my x's are going to go 1, and then the inner loop's going to happen. Then the x is going to go 2, and the inner loop's going to happen. So here again, for example, 2 are my x values, 1, 2, 3, 4. This time, however, I decided to make the inner loop start at x. So that's why the inner loop, the first time, is starting at x. X is 1, so the inner loop is going to print 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I get a print line statement. That's a new line. The next time through, x is now 2. That's why the inner loop, I'm having it start at 2. It's still going to go to 4. The third time through, the inner loop is going to start at 3. The fourth time through, it's going to start at 4. So here's my output. The inner loop is going 1, 2, 3, 4. Then 2, 3, 4. Remember, the inner loop is now beginning at the current value of x. So that's why when x is 2, it goes 2, 3, 4. When x is 3, it goes 3, 4. And x is 4, it goes 4. So this is another kind of typical example of a nested for loop that you might see. Let me just do 2 more real quick. Example 3, again, my outer loop is going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. This time I'm having my inner loop start at 1 and going to go for values less than x. So it's going to end going 1 less than x, right? Y less than x. So when x is 1, the inner loop is going to go from 1 to less than 1. While y is less than 1. So in other words, the inner loop's not going to happen at all. The next time through, when x is 2, the inner loop's going to go from 1 to, for y values less than 2, so the inner loop's going to happen once. This one's a little confusing. The third time through, x equals 3, so the inner loop is going to go for y values 1 and 2, right, less than 3. And then finally, the fourth time, x is 4, the inner loop is going to go 1, 2, 3. So here's the output right here. Remember, the inner loop is going, starting at 1, going for values less than the x value, right? So when x is 1, the inner loop's not happening at all. When x is 2, the inner loop's going once. When x is 3, the inner loop is going 1, 2, and so forth. And finally, the last example. The last example, I decided to make a triple nested for loop, and this is actually a binary counter. This is something that you might see. So this is, of course, how you count in binary. This is the binary number 0, then 1, then 2, right? 0, 1, 0 is a 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. And you might notice that the ones place here is alternating every time 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1. The twos place is alternating every 2 times, 2 zeros, 2 ones, 2 zeros, 2 ones. And finally the fours place, 4 zeros, 4 ones. Well, how am I doing that? Well, I have a triple nested for loop. I have each loop going from 0 to 1. Notice this time I'm going x less than or equal to 1. So the outer loop is going to count 0, 1. The middle loop is going to count 0, 1, and the innermost loop is going to go 0, 1. So we can, and then I'm just doing a print line statement, x with a space, then y with a space, then z. So hopefully you get what's going on here. Again, they each start at 0, so x is going to be 0, y is going to be 0, z is going to be 0. It prints everybody as 0. That's my first line. And then it does the inner loop until it's done. So the inner loop will go 0, 1. So again, I have 0, 0, 1. When the inner loop is done, it backs out to the middle loop, gets the next y value, which is now 1, and does the inner loop from scratch again, 0, 1. So that's why here my y column went to 1, and the inner loop went 0, 1 again. Now that the y value is at 1, it drops out of both loops, gets the next x value, which is now 1, gets the next y value, starts the y value from scratch again. So the y value starts again at 0, the z value starts at 0, and it counts again, 0, 1, and so forth. So trace through this a little bit. I think it'll make sense, and I'm going to include a Word document with these examples so you can play around with them and see if you can get something to happen different and see if it makes sense to you. So hopefully this was pretty quick, nested for loop, but hopefully it helped a little, and yeah, you just have to practice with them.